and welcome to today's chat. I'm me, Elvison. I'm the founder of the Vlog Academy. I'm the creator of EyeStorm, and I'm also the UK chair of the G100 Media Arts and Communication. Today, we're going to talk about female leadership. And with me, I've got Karen Jefford. Now, Karen has been doing an MBA and handed her dissertation in on Sunday. And the title of her dissertation was The Experience and Insight to Female Leadership. And I was actually honored to be part of one of her groups where we talked about this topic, and I'm really keen to find out a bit more of what came out of her research. Karen is also the Chief Operating Officer of Building Heroes, which is a military charity, but she's been focusing, of course, a lot on her MBA over the last 2 years. So I'm so pleased to have you here, Karen. Thank you for joining me. It's really good to see you.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
So tell us first, where are you? Where in the world are you, seeing we're doing this online?
I'm in the UK. I'm very much in the south, not too far from the sea, which is always good. Very therapeutic to sometimes, stretch your legs and walk out, clear the mind. So yeah, Sussex born and bred.
So tell me a little bit about your background and what led you to do your master's now, please.
I've had quite an interesting journey, really. Probably as a child, academia was quite a challenge for me. I found it quite hard, but I was quite a determined character. And I think in every industry that I worked, and when I left education, I started in the travel industry. And I think that put me in good stead for dealing with people and understanding people. And I think that's a really key thing, really, with where I've got to today. So I worked in the travel industry, and I was in the phase quite early on in the years where organisations didn't have to secure your job if you went on maternity leave. And one of my business clients in the travel industry said, "Look, we love what you do. Come and work for us." So after maternity, I left the travel industry and I went into media and marketing. And I worked for an organisation that did niche market magazines, publishing. And we worked for did the marketing for very prestigious cars like Aston Martin and Bentley, things like that. So again, the kind of people thing played its part for me. Marketing was about understanding the audience and the brand. And I think particularly those employers there were the first ones that actually said, "Karen, you're really good at what you do, and we want to encourage you and encourage you to do more." So I quite quickly worked my way up in that organisation and became, the director's, left arm, right hand woman. And I got to a point where I was getting itchy feet. And by itchy feet, I mean I was at the top of where I could, successfully achieve anything there. But I didn't actually, it's only now that I reflect back on that, I hadn't realised that I was somebody that was hungry for something else. I just felt I was going through life, it was the next stepping stone. And from there, I took a job which was a community lead for an education, for a secondary school. And for 14 years, I led a school of 1,400 students. And when I say led 1,400 students, I introduced them to organisations. So the school didn't have, in those days, any partnerships with employers. So, we're encouraging students to do all this education at school, but they didn't really understand how they apply it to education or, their education to careers or jobs or really be inspired by people. So I did a lot of that work for the school. And I was there for, I think, 13 bordering 14 years. And then I was headhunted. And headhunted to where I am now in the charity sector. A former friend, colleague, wanted the charity to succeed to the next level. And, my vision to make things better, improve things, and make those connections, she identified as what they needed in the charity that I work for now. So going back to where I started, did I have a goal of where I wanted to be? No. Did I have the qualifications in all the jobs that I did? No. It was just my sheer grit, determination, and actually the employers that saw my abilities more than me, really. And that's where I am today, really. So my current CEO, as did the previous ones, saw my abilities and wanted to encourage me to progress to one day be the CEO. So I had some skill gaps. I identified that, he identified that. And so that's what's led me at the ripe old age, I don't mind saying at 51, I went back to school. 2 years ago I started my MBA journey, and Sunday just passed. I handed in my dissertation after 2 years of working 7 days a week, combining my full-time job with studies. And do I look back and regret it? Definitely not. I mean, it's been a serious journey. It's been fantastic.
Congratulations, first of all. That is amazing, and you're an inspiration, and you're younger than me, so so all fantastic, great work. And two things that I picked up on from what you mentioned, and the first one was the job you did, the work you did for 14 years. I think this is so important because there's so much abstract education, and we go through all these years of learning, and people come out, even with specialist education and art school or media or all these new waves, and also vocational or unvocational studies where you have to go out and do practical things, and you're not prepared for it. So important to have that bridge. I wish there was always that link. We should do the final year, should just be all about that, shouldn't it? Understanding how a workspace actually works, how to cooperate, how to do meetings, all of those very basic things, up to, you know, dealing with budgets and clients, and, you know, all the businessy stuff as well, whatever, you know, sector you go into.
I think it's the life skills, they're important, aren't they? And it's knowing how to apply those.
The other thing was about CEO recognizing your abilities and skills and wanting to promote you. That, of course, is amazing. But how common is that, do you think? Does that actually happen? Because I think we have an impression of, you know, industries and work being quite tough, and that you have to fight your way through, you have to have that right education, you have to do the right things. But here you were actually led, and you know, they stretched out their hands to help you to the next step.
I think that's been a common journey for me, that all of my bosses, and actually I've got to say they've all been male, that have encouraged me. I had one female employer, and why she wanted me to do well, it was for the benefit of that particular organisation, that opposed to progressing me as a person. What a fantastic honour that the founder and CEO wants me to be the CEO. And I'm thinking, actually, what's holding me back from saying just yes and doing it? And interestingly, that was a common thing that came out of my dissertation, that, you know, men have got this guts of this bravado. I can do it. Yeah, that's fine. And we don't do that. And I think, you know, one of my reasons for wanting to be CEO is that I'm a mum of 2 children. I didn't do the academia route early on. I didn't go to university at young. I've done it now at 51. And it's still achievable. So I think anything is possible if you put your mind to it. And you want it enough, really.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that, of course. And do you think that it could be just sort of a slight sidetrack, but do you think that it is easier to see what's more valuable and take those steps when you have had your children, and you, what I call your, you know, the second beginning of your life, where we married, had children, and we now got a new future ahead of us?
It's interesting you say that, because on some of the interviews I carried out, interestingly, most of the people that I met that had got to leadership were of a similar age, compared to men who had reached that at a younger age. Obviously, there are key attributes as to why we delayed. We've had career breaks due to maternity, or we haven't been given the opportunities. Obviously, I'm not in that bracket because I have been given the opportunities. So we just need to be better at saying, I'm going to give it a go. You know, women are so resilient. We're so resilient. And, you know, we're disciplined and strong and kind. And kind came out a lot in the dissertation, as well as our caring attributes to be leaders, and how that was a benefit for women.
You very kindly invited me to a focus group during your writing of the dissertation to prepare and to see what actually women in the industries felt. And I'm really curious about the outcome of that. So one of those questions is actually, what 5 traits do you think are most valued in a leader? And that's not a male or a female leader. But do you think those values are different?
Definitely, 100%. So, yeah, I mean, there's a stereotypical or bias to say that men are strong and have got the power. And those attributes don't always lend themselves to be women-led, women, you know, in their caring nature, nurture, softer, kinder. And those that perhaps don't present those are, and what was interesting, the women that didn't have those attributes were just trying to be men, and so they were being quite aggressive in their demeanour and how they approach things. So that was quite interesting. So yeah, clear differentiation between men and women and our styles of leadership, but absolutely, and the evidence is there that we women can lead just as successfully as men.
Most importantly, and not let go of those values that we have within those areas of the softness and kindness. And what we hear a lot is compassion, isn't it? Women are more compassionate, we understand emotions, we are better team leaders. Is this true? Is it all, you know, all these things that we've been hearing now for quite a long time? Do you sense that it is all there with women?
I do, but I think we need to get better at it. So we talk it amongst itself like this, and in our safe groups, so our networking groups. We do it
or better at it, or just allow it. And as you said before, maybe not just copy into the whole masculine behavior with sharp elbows. And I mean, I've seen that so many times throughout my time working in the film industries, and you have these roles that are typically male jobs really, and women take over and they step into this, not necessarily a dark suit in the industry case, but very masculine behavior where you feel that it doesn't work, it's actually not, it doesn't feel right when you see their normal personality. So it all becomes a little bit, there's a discord somewhere in the way they do things. I find it really, really interesting. Were there any other unexpected thoughts around, you know, the differences between men and women in a leadership role that you picked up on?
There wasn't in terms of that, but the biggest or enlightening bit of information for me was women recognising they weren't putting themselves forward, that they create their own barriers. So, you know, in all of the literature that you read, it says women have all these barriers, and there are some obvious ones, you know, delays in careers because of maternity leave, opportunities. But really, yeah, the biggest shock I had was the females were recognising the own barriers they put themselves. So I spoke to you earlier about imposter syndrome. You know, why do we do that to ourselves? And, you know, this need to be able to do every single part of the job or tick everything on the job specification. We don't need to do that. You know, being leaders isn't about knowing all the information, but it is, and this is the very important thing, it is about knowing your people, it is about knowing your staff and pulling out the key attributes and strengths of those individuals to make a really strong team. Now that makes a strong leader because she or he has identified the strengths of her team. But obviously, she's got to obviously have that, you know, strength and resilience to take that leadership role. But yeah, for me, that was oh my God, I didn't realise women felt like that or were aware that they put their own barriers in their way. How do we change that?
How do we change that?
I think some of it's got to come from education. So interestingly, of the females that I interviewed, most of their inspiration came from upbringing. There was a mother role model or a father role model that encouraged them, do well at school or do well and you will achieve. There was encouragement, positive, you know, environment. And then, you know, I'm an example of when I got to industry, that males or people have encouraged me to progress my career. And the disconnect was the education. So jobs for girls, jobs for boys, do maths and you can go into this industry, you know, do English and you can go into that industry. But there was no real discussions around how to be an entrepreneur or how to be a leader, and those opportunities are available to everybody. There was not, so I feel there's a piece of work to be done in education actually, and actually more women mentoring and inspiring other women. So I must just tell you a story. So I went for an interview once upon a time, and you know, on paper I ticked everything. I knew about this organisation. I'd done some work for this organisation, and you know, there was a dead cert that I was going to be this next, you know, manager of this organisation. However, on the day, a woman interviewed me, and I since found out after that interview I didn't get the job because she felt threatened that I might take her job. You know, what a disappointing landscape. You know, what about seeing the strength of us, or the united force of us working together to improve something, or actually me making you look really good? You know, that was a disappointment. And I guess from that point, that spurred me on to think, my God, I don't want to create that landscape for the other women that I work for. I want to change that, and I want to do good, and I want to encourage them to be better versions of themselves.
This is a really, really important topic, I think. There's actually two really important things here. First, about mentorship, which I am very keen to see more of, because I was just thrown in the deep end when I started production work. There was no, you know, training period or anyone even showing, you know, the protocol of each company you came into. You were just supposed to, you know, here's your desk, here's a phone basically and a computer, get going. And that was incredibly scary, especially I was very young when I started. So seeing mentors in all, you know, businesses, in all industries, and I think it's equally important for men and women, for boys and girls, to have mentors. If things go wrong, who do you go to? You have to have someone there to connect with and who you feel safe with, someone who can show you and lead you through. And of course, in larger organizations, they do have a three-week period where you get started. But in many small organizations, I think you're thrown straight into it. So I think mentorship is really, really important. And we need to give that when you come, you know, you've gone through many years of working and experience, you know, what it's like to be an employee, to be a self-employed, to be a business owner. We have to give back to the younger generation who's just stepping out there. Take that time to ensure that they are safe and they enter work in a safe way. So for me, that's really, really important.
I would agree with you on that. I mean, you know, I've only got to this stage now that I've been made aware that I've got the opportunity to engage with a mentor or a coach. That's never even crossed my path until now. Those opportunities that may have been earlier for me, who knows what would have presented themselves. And actually that was one of my parting, you know, conclusions on my dissertation. More mentors, more encouragement, you know, more, you know, influence on, you know, changing that landscape for women.
And positive role models as well. Yeah. And the other thing was that I wanted to hear a little bit about what you think to the bitching climate we hear so much about. When we have too many women in a room, do we become bitches? Is that true, or is that in the past? And I think this is really important to see, because women have always had to fight with other women, no matter what we were doing, to keep our space. And we, of course, had a lot of men throughout history of time that we had to schmooze and to satisfy in all sorts of ways. And then when we came into business properly, not that long ago, we still had a lot of male heads of the companies and corporations, and all the women were competitors about that man. But now we don't have those situations anymore, really. In the Western world, women are allowed to have the same education. we should have the same opportunities. Is this true, or do we still feel more competition between us as women, do you think?
I do, and that was a topic that came up really, and something I'd like to see a change on. We should be a nation of, inspiring, guiding, encouraging, rather than feel that another woman is a threat. Now, we're not a threat in this environment, talking like this. We're not a threat when we're networking in groups, but it seems when another woman's working for the same organisation, let me backtrack. So I think there is a perception that women have to work harder to prove ourselves. And I think because we have to work hard to prove ourselves, we're looking to draw the line in the sand to say, that's mine, that's rightfully mine. And so when somebody else comes along and another woman comes along, they're seen as a threat. I'm going to make it my vocation that I don't make another woman feel like that, certainly my organisation. And I'm already consciously mentoring women in my organisation to think, I'm already saying to them, if I become CEO, I'm preparing you to be the next one.
Oh, I love that. I love that. We'll follow your example. That is just wonderful.
I don't know why we do it, because, we are passionate about each other.
Yeah, we always hear these women supporting women and, all step forward together. And then when push comes to shove, there seems to be a little bit of edginess around us sometimes, which is very saddening. And we do not have any reason for this anymore. Collaboration and helping each other, supporting each other more than anything else. We do need more women not necessarily always in leadership roles, and let me come back to that because I think you've studied that as well, but we need to be at the heart of decision making. We need to have voices all through society. But then another question is, do women want to be in leadership roles, or do we actually not necessarily want to be at the helm?
Interestingly, those that I interviewed didn't see, although they were in leadership roles, they didn't see themselves as leaders. And I think actually you used the terminology yourself, Me, which was about you want to be seen as change makers. And that was an interesting thing. So I never aspired to be a leader, yet I naturally lead. My husband will call me, he'll call me bossy, and, but I'm not, I'm just organising, I'm very good at that. It just comes naturally. I don't have to work at that at all. I don't know why women do what they do, but we're amazing. We are powerful in our own right. And, we create life. We create lives. Wow, nobody else can do that but us women. And, we nurture and we can transform people and places. And I'm getting passionate now, sorry, me.
We love passion.
Our race, women, are the only ones that can give life. We give birth, we create life. And then we nurture that, and we nurture people, and we're amazing at collaborating. We're very good at that. And then we're good at transforming. If there's something, there's a crisis, we get on and we do it. Men aren't so good at that. But I think something important, and I feel quite passionate about, is I don't want to create a society where we become, women, we're the best, because it should be recognised men have their strengths, women have their strengths, and equally we can lead or not lead. We don't necessarily have to always be the leader, but we're very good at what we do. Whatever we do, we apply ourselves. We're smart, and we are hardworking, sometimes probably too hardworking. But do we all need to be leaders? I didn't aspire to be a leader, but look, at 51, I may well be. And if I am, boy, am I going to give it a really, good, I need to swore then, sorry, a really good go. And do the very best for me, but most importantly for the people that are, rely on me to do a good job.
Is there anything else that came out of your studies and research that you were surprised by?
Boundaries, setting boundaries. Women feel that they've got to do everything. They've got to have the job. They've got to be the mum. They've got to be the housekeeper. They've got to be the wife. They've got to be the partner. Whereas men seem to have the ability to, I've done that, leave it alone and then move to something else. We're trying to do it all. So setting boundaries for ourselves so that we've got the space and time to still be who we are. but also a culture shift. And with interest, I read the Icelandic model of what they do out there. And they've got a 50-50 parental arrangement. Both male, female can have a career. They've both got the responsibility of the child. And actually, as a country, they've got the most women in leadership and working. So there's evidence of a model that works. So, you know, I'd like to perhaps see a shift in culture. Can we adopt something like that in the UK? And give women the opportunity. You know, give us the opportunity to be a leader or not be a leader, and don't put us in a box that's only what you can do. You're a mum, and so you're just there to do the caring. If we want the opportunity to progress and have a career, you know, let us have that opportunity.
And there's a progression, obviously, to leadership. You're not just going to step out and be a leader immediately. And in the UK, for example, where childcare is so expensive, being Swedish and knowing, you know, they pay like a day rate for a month for childcare. So, of course, women go back to work much sooner. And that means, you know, that they get back into to work. You know, they start paying taxes again. That there's a circle inside the whole economy, and also knowledge and the skill set that is continued and not just stopped for many years. Where here it's cheaper for women to stay home than go to work. So how are we going to develop female leaders from that? Unless you have a successful husband, or unless you have family who can look after your children, other family who can step in. So I think that is a really important thing to look at, is the cost of childcare, to be able to get women out back onto the market, to workspace.
Interestingly, a couple of the females that I interviewed were mums. Not everybody, but they were mums. And they said, you know, let's say, I don't know, the son, daughter was poorly at school. It was always down to them to go and pick them up. The father wasn't the one that was going to leave the job. You know, she was always the one. So that was quite interesting. And the other interesting thing, those that were female leaders that didn't have children, still in a way have made a sacrifice, because they are successful in their positions, but the substitution of them, many of them not having a relationship. They married the job to be successful and to prove themselves and to get where they've got to. There's a lot of reflective work, and, you know, I was honoured. Quite a few people said to me, oh my God, this is like going through therapy, you know, talking this out loud now and reflecting on my journey.
So we need to keep talking about it. We really need to keep talking about it. Wow. Well, we've seen during the pandemic as well, two things. I mean, both that women had to do all the homeschooling, not all, of course, but a high percentage of the women stepped in and looked after the homeschooling. The men who were working as well as the women immediately took on the spare room and made it their office, whereas women have to move between the kitchen and the living room and sit with their laptop in their lap, literally. No exchange or you know, agreement on sharing 50-50 at all when both people are working. And of course, that's also something that we need to talk about, which is to have the right to stand up for things like that, which a lot of women still are scared of. You cannot stand up for yourself, even to your own husband or partner. And that's really going to have a long effect on a lot of things. So that communication between already in your family, then if you can't do it at home, how are you going to be able to do that in the workplace?
You know, there is evidence that women do more unpaid work. You know, we do loads of hours and it's all unpaid. And I think there is a landscape of change. I mean, I'm very blessed that, you know, I do have a supportive husband, not least, you know, for 2 years, he hasn't seen me. I've been in my office studying Saturdays, Sundays, and I have got a supportive one. But yes, I'm very blessed that I am confident and I've had people to encourage me and inspire me. But I know that hasn't been from mere females, and I know I want to make that change, because I know that many don't have that confidence and don't have that voice. So, you know, let us work together to make sure that there isn't a landscape where people are scared or feel vulnerable or don't have that strength to make that change. But I think in homes, I think that's down to, you know, the husband, wife, you know, partners, you know, to have that communication to say, actually, this isn't my responsibility to do this all myself. You know, we've decided to have children, if that's what we're talking about, or the dog. You know, I know lots of relationships that have split up and they're still sharing the dog, you know, so communication is key. Communicate.
This is so interesting, Karen. Thank you so much for the work you have done, the hard, many hours you put in to do this, all the research and the conclusions you come to. How can people get in touch with you or follow you? Where will you be hanging out?
Probably LinkedIn is the best one. I have to hold my hands up. I'm a little bit old school. I'm not very good with social media. But look, I'm very much want to pave the change for women. So if I'm going to do that, I've got to be more proactive. I've got to be vocal. I've got to open my doors for people to reach out to me, and you know, I want to share my experience of what I have learned and what's been shared with me. And you know, I'm passionate to make a difference. So
I can feel your passion and I love it. I really love it. And I can see you just go out there and create change. It's fabulous to see. I wanted to ask you as well if you have any female role models, or if anyone in particular have cropped up during your research.
I know it's cliche, but you know, I before our conversation, before we filmed, I said to you I had a moment in the car on the way back from work. And there was that radio announcement to say that the Queen had died. And number one, I felt emotional because I think she's always been in my life. It was like losing a family member. Number two, you know, she is a woman of strength who has led our country and been, you know, dedicated and never wavered. And I was inspired. I'm inspired by her. And then there was my moment of, why am I holding back? I'm going to be that CEO. I can be that same strong person to do that. So Queen, for me, that was a moment in my car most recently. But what I loved about my interviews for my dissertation was the females that I interviewed, their openness to share their journeys with me, to enable me to learn from that, to contribute to my dissertation, which has equipped me with more information, more inspiration to go and help others. So yeah, and the very fact that I can't name you another person, I guess that's quite sad, isn't it? So you know, let's change that landscape. I'm going to get my name or my picture on that 100 board, me. So there you are. There's my goal.
With you all the way, but right behind you. Excellent. Thank you so much for taking the time for our little chat. I wish you all the best with everything. And I will stay tuned and see what you come up with next. I'm very curious and excited for you. So good luck and hopefully see you very soon.
Thank you, Mee. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much, everyone, for watching, and do like, subscribe and follow for more interviews with inspirational people from around the world. Thank you.